Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with Kevin, where we add value to people's lives, happening every day at 12 on ebizradio.com. Back with us for our marketing segment, the marketing and communications experts, Craig Page-Lee. Craig, how are you doing?
I'm great, Kevin. Thanks. Yes, looking forward to the short week ahead.
Yeah, like it's a nice. I think that it throws everyone off, though, right? We like the holidays and the April. I think people go on. They just take extra days and they like go off for a couple of weeks already. Like, I think we all need it as well, right?
I have found that as well. Some clients that you want to liaise with are missing in action because they've extended periods and things like that. But for me, the scary reality is, apart from the fact that we're heading towards the end of another month, is we're a quarter into 2021 already.
Yeah, it's quite scary, and like I look at, and I always use my daughter's school holidays as reference to like where we're in the like part of the year, and to just think that she's already she's on holiday now. She's like Friday was her last day for this term. And it's like going, wow, she's already grade 7, or already finished the first term, done really well, really grateful for. But it's scary to think. But what's nice about it, Craig, I think it goes to show that we've got this far. COVID has happened. We've dealt with 2 waves already of COVID, and I think people are really kicking into that adaptability, agile kind of how do we make business happen irrespective of our circumstances.
Yeah, you know what, that's really great to hear that question. On the way in early this morning, I listened to Bongani on 702, really one of my favorite shows of the day. And in fact, it wasn't Bongani, I jumped around this morning. I went and listened to 94.7 for some reason. And it was there that it caught my attention.
Yeah.
They did exactly a year ago. They did a call out to listeners across the world who do stream into South Africa and listen to their particular show. And a year later, coming up for this 1-year anniversary for South Africa of COVID, they reconnected with some of those very individuals that they spoke to exactly a year ago in the respective countries that they're located in, Kevin. And this particular individual, one of them, is a chap based in Australia, and he is a semi-professional tennis player, South African origin, living there. And he was just giving a rundown around how the Australians have embraced COVID, and a year later, what's happening in their country. And it's quite interesting to see that the negativity of this dictate message around COVID, do this, don't do that, is actually, it's eliminated from the conversation. And in many instances, the term COVID doesn't even exist. And it's more about encouraging you to just live consciously around social distancing, cleaning hands, considering those around you, and just taking it into a mainstream of existence, that this is the way it has to be for a period of time. And when we adapt and adhere to these requirements and frameworks, we can actually move forward as a society that respects and considers the rule of law in moving forward around that. And it was a fascinating response, because there's no way in hell we're going to achieve that in our country, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's brilliant to kind of frame it that way. I think we're so used to just telling people what it needs to be and how it has to be, and we far from the space of framing it in like, this is what we need to really consider each other. We don't, and I think for me, that's what was substantial that came out of COVID in the last 12 months is it's almost like the Earth's way of telling us, can you just be a little bit more responsible for who you are and what you do and how you behave? I think and that's sort of an underlying theme that I've come across as.
Yes. And what I found quite interesting as we're chatting about this now is particularly if one looked at the leadership in New Zealand, yes, very much so in Australia, but the leadership in New Zealand is how the influencer mindset, the last week's topic, is really important. And the president of New Zealand probably been one of the greatest influencers around this particular topic. And yes, the Australians have been very close in that regard as well. And with the right message in place and the right aspects of the brand represented, the influencer status has really carried the message forward, and consumers, in this instance, citizens of those respective nations, have adhered to the message that has been delivered because they've bought into the understanding of that message in the same way that consumers would buy into the understanding of a brand that is delivered correctly by the chosen influencer.
And like, to your point, Craig, like, what better, example to use than influencer in how you influence people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly to what, our point last week is being how do brands connect with influencer marketing, what that is, and how an individual sort of wraps or a brand wraps themselves around an individual who has the potential to influence. But I mean, on that note, Craig, don't you want to give us a wrap up of what we spoke about? I know that you mentioned nano influencer, and I'm still working on that.
I love it.
Give us a bit of a rundown on what we did chat about.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so let me start by saying that it is an incredibly fascinating topic, and the fact that we can actually extend it into what we just have around, the COVID conversation. And one of the reasons I say that is it's specifically that brand owners and brand marketers are really brave in relinquishing control of their brands into the hands of an influencer to connect with their respective followers and to build awareness and interest around that particular brand, whilst redirecting the energy and efforts from the brand owners into the hands of influencers. So I think that's incredibly brave of brand owners being able to do that. But to summarize those points that we spoke about last week, Kevin, it's important for brands to remember the following when choosing their influencers for their social media marketing strategy. So number one, consider what sort of subjects the influencer covers, as well as their areas of expertise, and obviously make sure that aligns with the particular brands in question. Check to see how the influencers are posting online. Brand owners will definitely want to choose an influencer that posts on a more regular basis to keep their audience engaged, but obviously not too frequently, because the posts do get lost in the noise in many instances. Look into the kinds of people who make up the following of those influencers and share that there's alignment with the target audience that your brand is looking for. Identify how much follower interaction the potential influencers have on their social platforms. And, the more followers that interact with influencers posts, the more reach your brand's going to have and stickiness with the people in the influencer space. Ensure you pick an influencer who has authority on their niche and who's always authentic and honest in their posts. Create content that aligns with the influencer that you've chosen. When content resonates with those influencers, they'll be more willing to publish and share to their particular audiences, and that obviously is going to give your content greater reach at the end of the day. And finally, make sure that the influencer's approach is passive. It's usually important because quite aggressive approaches can be alienating to many of the followers from those influencers.
Thanks, Craig. I think that if guys, if you have joined us, definitely go and check out our previous last conversation. I think it's some of the stuff that you touch on there is not only great for companies and corporates out there, but it also gives people like a really good idea on like why influencers are important, and potentially how to pick them better. I think
how to pick them better. If only brands could know how to pick their consumers better at times as well.
Exactly, right. But I mean, for today's conversation, Craig, what are we chatting about today?
So, Kevin, thanks. We're going to discuss quite a complex topic today, that being the green economy. And rather complex, as there are many factors and facets that drive the principles of the green economy. And there are many stakeholders and lobbyists at the center of the narrative and formulating the rules within this particular aspect of the economy and why it should even exist. So yeah, let's start by looking at a definition of what it actually is and how it impacts on us, Kevin. So the green economy is an economy that aims at reducing environmental risk and ecological scarcities, and one that aims for sustainable development without degrading the environment. The 2011 United Nations Green Economy Report notes that to be green, an economy must not only be efficient, but also fair, a vitally important word here. With fairness recognizing global and country level equity dimensions, particularly in assuring a just transition to an economy that is low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive. And yeah, with the world as we know today, Kevin, the last statement is obviously going to be the biggest challenge in achieving this vision, moving from that low carbon, resource efficient to socially inclusive environment.
Yeah. Craig, so I've seen a number of products that carry what I believe the eco labels, like the World's Fair Trade Organization on some of the coffee bean packaging, Dolphin Safe on some of the tuna can packaging, and the Coffee and Farmers Equity label, the CAFE, when I visit Starbucks. Do these labels form part of the green economy discussion?
Yeah, great question. Kevin, they do. And do they necessarily contribute and make the green economy work as well as it is? Maybe not. And there's another very big conversation to be had around that. But definitely, eco labels do influence consumer purchase decision behavior in two ways. Firstly, they draw consumers' attention to the fact that the brand or the product or service in question actually has considered the green economy as an attribute of what the brand stands for. And secondly, they enable consumers to compare that product against other products in the competitor environment in that respective category to see if the other brands are playing in that space or not. So just to deviate for a minute, I want to remind our listeners, Kevin, that brand attributes is defined as a functional or emotional association with a brand, and that it's an important element in establishing a brand's identity. And it most definitely forms part of the who, the what, the how, and the why of a brand. Who is the brand? What is it saying? Why is it saying? And how's it behaving? And all of those aspects fit into the green economy proposition. So therefore, if a consumer is green economy conscious, then a product containing a green or eco label most definitely has a higher chance of being purchased over any other such product.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. And it's always encouraging to see that there are environmentally conscious brands out there. But before we expand on what brands can and possibly are doing in this space, please provide us with some insights on what the green economy actually is.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there are multiple layers and complexities to this conversation. So I went and did some deep reading across a couple of resources, and there are one or two that I want to reference here, which really help us unpack this behemoth. So let's start by referencing the World Resource Institute, which is a global organization that, quoting their website, works closely with leaders to turn big ideas into actions to sustain our natural resources, the foundation of economic opportunity and human well-being. A big task that they strive to achieve.
Yeah.
So the World Resource Institute also defines the green economy as a green economy that can be thought of as an alternate vision for growth and development, one that can generate growth and improvements in people's lives in ways consistent with sustainable development. A green economy promotes a triple bottom line, a phrase you're probably very familiar with, which is sustaining and advancing economic, environmental, and social well-being. The prevailing economic growth model is focused on increasing GDP above all other goals. Whilst this system has improved outcomes and reduced poverty for hundreds of millions, it comes with significant and potentially irreversible social, environmental, and economic costs. In a recent global assessment, approximately 60% of the world's economic services were found to be degraded or used unsustainably. Wow. So yeah, an incredibly powerful concept, Kevin, that desperately needs the help of and support from global brands to succeed. And rightly so, I'm putting my neck out on the block here, because many global brands have really exploited the Earth's resources in developing their respective products and services and disseminating them to unsuspecting consumers. So the key challenge for the brands here, Kevin, is that they need to understand how to transition into this green economy that benefits more people over a longer period. And the challenge, again, in a micro instance, is that the fundamental shift is required in thinking about growth and development, production of goods and services, and consumer habits. And last but not least, how does that translate into good green marketing practice as well?
Craig, so I guess that as a citizen of the planet, we all have a role to play in delivering the vision of a green economy. But as you say, it's really brands who have a big responsibility in driving this mandate. How do you think that they can achieve that?
Yeah, with a lot of effort, Kevin. I came again across a really interesting report, this time published by the ICC, not the International Cricket Council, but the International Chamber of Commerce, which represents global businesses. In fact, maybe the ICC should have read it, because there are a couple of points that they would need to adhere to be compliant themselves as a body. So the report defines the green economy as an economy in which economic growth and environmental responsibility work together in a mutually reinforcing fashion while supporting the progress of social development. And what's really great is it sets out 10 conditions that highlight the role that business can play in bringing solutions to the global challenges. And it's around some of these principles that I'd like to answer your question, Kevin. So quickly, I just want to give you a snapshot of those 10 conditions. They defined as follows: open and competitive markets, metrics, accounting and reporting, finance and investment, awareness, life cycle approach, resource efficiency and decoupling, employment, education and skills, governance and partnerships, and lastly, number 10, integrated policy and decision making. So when referencing these 10 points, Kevin, it's quite easy to see how brands can actually support the environmental health and green economy, but really they need to have the willingness and commitment to do so, as it requires a fundamental shift from their currently revenue-driven mission, where there is little or zero consideration to environmental impact, to one that is structured around sound, environmentally driven business processes that reduce the impact on the environment as much as possible. So again, I think that the organizations that will win here, Kevin, are those that have products that address these very conditions head on, especially when thinking around topics like air pollution, global warming, plastics in the ocean, and deforestation.
Yeah.
So picking up on a really interesting and very current article on YTAO's website, ytao.com, we see that 2/3 of consumers say that their purchasing consideration is driven by a company's ethical values, and that they crave greater transparency for brands. And that's really reassuring to understand.
Yeah.
We also know that there are many companies that are focused on the ESG fundamentals, those being environmental, social, and governance, as I mentioned earlier. And the brands that do so have accelerated their return on investment significantly, which again presents obvious opportunities for brands investing in sustainable and ethical sourcing practices. And just to provide some context on that particular article from Retail, they prove to customers around the world that certain brands have ethically produced products. It's almost like creating a listing of these ethically produced brands, but then matching them to the right ambassadors. And, we spoke about our topic last week, who in turn connect these brands to the millions of consumers around the world. And there's almost this closed loop conversation where, so here we have these ambassadors, they connect great brands to millions of consumers around the world, but they also showcase those brands for consumers to see in, so that consumers are comfortable enough in understanding who those brands are that they want to engage with. So in other words, by promoting environmentally friendly approach, brands can distinguish themselves from their competitors and attract new consumers, the right consumers. So when a company is able to demonstrate a clean, transparent supply chain, it builds a stronger reputation in the minds of consumers. So yeah, in closing that section, just to reference the site again, two studies, interesting studies that were picked up on. So HP in Australia and Planet Arc found that while over 90% of Australian consumers and businesses concerned about environmental sustainability, Kevin, only half of them actually believed that they were doing enough in driving the activities to protect their planet. And then a further study by Nielsen in 2019, again an Australian study, found that the majority of Australian consumers are either highly or somewhat willing to pay more for products that are environmentally friendly or sustainable, a practice that we're aware that many brands adopt. And the takeout from both of these reports is that consumers are willing to align their values with the businesses they purchase from. So with that in mind, it's quite obvious to see that the statement, investing in a green economy is a marketing asset, is absolutely true, because green campaigns can connect consumers with brands to build greater awareness. And a great example of marketing, green marketing in this particular space is around the clothing retailer Patagonia.
Craig, so I'm glad you mentioned Patagonia in the last statement, because I was going to ask to name a few brands that might be achieving this vision and contributing to bringing solutions to the global challenge. Are you able to give us some more insights into this brand?
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for that. I don't know how familiar you are with the Patagonia brand, Kevin, but wow, to provide some context, firstly, it's an incredible brand, full stop. It's a well-known multi-million-dollar American clothing company, and it markets sustainable outdoor clothing and apparel. It was founded by Yvonne Chouinard in 1973, and literally since its launch, Patagonia has held in ethical and environmental issues very close to its core. And for me, it's probably one of the leading brands in the world in terms of longevity and commitment and honesty and authenticity to this particular cause. The brand was named after the mountainous region in South America, and it has an incredibly strong social media and digital marketing presence that is centered around strong green purpose and transparent communication around sustainability. So referencing moneyinc.com and a really cool article that positions Patagonia, and it states that Patagonia's clothing is inseparable from its aggressive environmental advocacy. It led the outdoor industry in using recycled nylon and polyester fabrics, and Patagonia's chilled out vintage vibe is rooted in the idea that its clothes are built to last for years, not just seasons, and something that many of the other clothing retailers are now beginning to pick up on, and I'll reference one or two of those later in our discussion. But an incredibly powerful statement with an incredibly powerful commitment to the environment and therefore the green economy by default, Kevin. Yeah, and again, what stands out for me about the Patagonia brand is the fact that the company commits 1% of its total sales or 10% of the profits, whichever is the greater, to environmental groups, and something that is incredibly rare in the clothing industry, particularly when we understand, that clothes these days are designed and manufactured for disregarding after one season. So while we do know there are a number of great companies that donate some of their profits to charities, very few actually commits to environmental charities or groups, and it's therefore largely down to the founders of those respective brands' enthusiasm and dedication for environmental issues that drive the donations in the first place. So looking at the Patagonia brand in isolation, I just decided to see what the brand was actually doing in relation to the 10 key conditions that we listed earlier. And this is purely my opinion, but I really believe that Patagonia brand has brought opportunity to the following business challenges: open and competitive markets. Most definitely in this category, it's a challenge in that space. Its fund and investment strategy is most definitely addressing that. Awareness around these particular issues beyond comprehension. Life cycle approach from its product life cycle. Employment and education and skills. And this all being validated by two statements that appear on their website, Kevin. We're in the business to save our home planet. We aim to use the resources we have, our voice, our business, and our community to do something about our climate crisis. The second phrase, we're taxing ourselves. Patagonia's self-imposed earth tax, 1% for planet, provides support to environmental nonprofits working to defend our air, land, and water around the globe.
Craig, I know we've got our list of questions here, but I'm just going to think about it like that. That's such a profound way of thinking about it. To have earth tax, and it's a case of going, do we get to a point where it becomes part of how we do business? Like instinctively, it's a requirement that you have 1% earth tax, that you donating that 1%. Do politicians and countries decide that, guys, this is how we need to start doing business? I think that's, even the fact that we're having this conversation, I think is very important for people to actually start asking these questions.
Yeah, Kevin, and again, if businesses and brands structure their behavior, their existence, and their delivery around the ESG fundamentals, the environmental, social, and governance principles, there's no reason why they won't be achieving this.
Yeah, I'm saying. So I'm glad that we're talking about it, because it really starts like making you think, and anyone out there listening to this will start going, yeah, so why don't we, even if you establish that in your own capacity for your own company, like Patagonia does, right? But what other brands are aware of that are active in the green economy, Craig?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. There are actually quite a few brands that are doing some really great stuff out there. And I found a wonderful, insightful article on Quality Logo Products blog. And because we were talking about the eco and the green logos, I thought it was a really great place to go and investigate what brands are doing. So we see a number of the really big brands making efforts to go green and to contribute to the green economy. So just to pick on a few of those, and I think our listeners will be quite familiar with some of these companies and the brands within their respective portfolio. So let's start with Procter & Gamble. Their environmental sustainability efforts focus around several areas, including likes of water usage, waste, CO2 emissions, and packaging. And most important to note here is that 70% of their sites are sending no manufacturing waste to landfills. And that was an incredibly enlightening statistic for me, Kevin, because I didn't realize that, really.
Yeah.
Puma, a brand that I'm a big fan of and supporter of, they redesigned their packaging quite a while ago for their shoes called the Clever Little Bag. And it was a really cool reusable shoe bag that you can throw your gym kit and things like that. And when discarded, it will decompose in 3 months, because the little bag is made out of cornstarch. And again, here's a really interesting stat here. The bag reduced the company's paper consumption by 65% to date and cut down their annual carbon emissions by 1,000 tons.
Wow.
Yeah. Sure. Lay's crisp belongs to the PepsiCo group of companies. They've spent the past 10 years reducing the environmental impact of their facilities, and one in particular, the Casa Grande in Arizona. This was done by burning wood waste to generate steam, upgrading their entire truck fleet to all electric, and running the plant on landfill gas. And we are seeing a lot more frequent use of landfill gas, where they're recycling wastage and things like that in a number of plants around the world. And then one of my ultimate brands, IKEA, the Swedish furniture store, they source about half of their timbers from sustainable forests, and 100% of their cotton comes from farms that meet the better cotton standards. And, you want some big stats. IKEA has over 700,000 solar panels powering their stores around the world. They've got cardboard compactors in their warehouses, and they're even giving employees bicycles as company gifts in an attempt to cut down on the carbon footprint in their environments. What was quite cool is that they recently opened a second-hand store, and this is a very recent event, Kevin, where they offer customers vouchers for returned IKEA furniture. So when you're at the end of the life cycle of that particular style of home fit out and you want to refresh your home or whatever it is, consumers can bring back their second-hand product and hand it in for credits or for a voucher to purchase new product, and then the old kit is recycled into either smaller elements or reused in creating a new brand range. Really fantastic. Yeah. And then again, just keeping on the range of Swedish brands, another brand that the Swedish brand making significant efforts to support the green economy is H&M, and they've adapted some innovation or adopted, I should say, some innovation in this regard, where they've implemented an industrial machine that disassembles and reassembles their recycled materials, and it's then cleaned, shredded into fibers and spun into yarn, and then knitted into new environmentally fresh, economically and environmentally friendly fashion items again. So they literally deconstruct the clothing, use the elements, create a new yarn, and then respin to create new clothing. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I really do.
Brilliant, yeah.
Yeah. Nike uses post-consumer recycled materials in their products. Amazon, they've very interesting here, because you may well know that e-commerce is definitely incredibly harmful to the environment in terms of the packaging and the distribution, carbon footprint challenges and things like that. And as such, they've implemented a 24/7 policy of eco-consciousness and awareness that ensures the company is always focusing on energy conservation and responsible sourcing. And one of their biggest green efforts was the installation of solar rooftops at all their distribution houses, and the building of 10 renewable energy farms with wind turbines working directly with manufacturers to reduce waste around that. And then last but not least on this particular list, Kevin, is Google have implemented a really great innovative adoption of renewable energy to run all of their search engines. And I think that's phenomenal, because the sheer fact that we're driving this particular program digitally, we in ourselves are using a huge amount of energy. Imagine what the Google search engines are running on a daily basis. So a great effort and initiative in that regard to try and generate or deliver 100% renewable energy to run the search engines.
Wow, Craig, yeah, I mean, that's an impressive list of brands and some great initiatives being actioned. And I can proudly say that it may not be my 1% yet, but I'm definitely, I've already started actioning, doing any assessments and stuff that I use with from a coaching perspective. I always tell people, guys, let's save the trees and let's just do this online and do your assessment online, so we don't actually print out any documentation. But I think it's incredible, in the things that people are doing, and I think just having this conversation and building more awareness around the green economy, really speaks to what we should start having in our back pockets the whole time.
Yeah.
But in closing today, Craig, what are the key points, takeaways that we can share with the listeners on a brand making a difference in the green economy?
Kevin, I'd like to pick up on some of the do's and don'ts that brands need to be aware of when creating a sustainable brand strategy, and referencing an article on the ecomatcher.com website posted last year by Bas Franson. The following points are really key for our listeners. So some of the do's. Do integrate sustainably with your brand. So if you're serious about making your brand sustainable, rather than have it as a value add-on, then environmentally sustainable work practices are required to permeate your business and culture. And in this instance, a purpose-driven mission statement really helps achieve this. Yeah. Do educate, but remember, there's also only so much marketing and self-promotion that your audience can take or will be willing to engage in. So ensure that you use a clear voice and that you mix good educational information with the content you want to share about sustainability. Do make your own targets. Instead of following other businesses' path to sustainability, it's important that you focus on creating and meeting your development goals, and therefore you need to map out a path that works efficiently for your brand. And do pick the right partners. While you might be certain that your company has sustainable environmental practices in place that are followed, you can definitely undermine all your hard work if you're picking partners who are not sustainable in their approach and delivering their business service to you.
Yeah.
Do not greenwash. We hear this incredible phrase of greenwashing and green bashing. Do not oversell your green initiatives, and do not create a false narrative around them. Do not undersell. Celebrate your sustainable practices and achievements with your customers. It's better to be up here as a green advocate than a brand that has nothing to share and doesn't care about sustainability at all. Do not alienate your customers. Involve them in your green initiatives. If you have a sustainable model to dispose of certain types of waste, invite your customers to partake in that and let them bring some of that waste to you as well, like IKEA have done. Really, really great example. Do not go into debt. Take your sustainable journey slowly and with simple steps. The aim of sustainable development cannot eclipse your business. And yeah, in so many instances, you could be running down the wrong rabbit hole in trying to build out sustainable practices and actually just run yourself into the end game of your business.
Yeah. Thank you, Craig. Just final comments on today's conversation. I like I mentioned last week, I think it's always great to leave it up to you to kind of showcase what we're going to be discussing next. And it's having a green conversation is something I've done before, and I just love the fact that you're bringing it into consideration and showcasing how business can really take this on and become part of why you market yourself and how this lends itself to your business, but also doing it, the most effectively way you can, and doing your research and having the numbers and supporting this in a good way. So, considering the show, where we add value to people's lives, and I think this insight and this conversation really will start getting people to have a little bit more insight than they did yesterday.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for that. And I think what's really cool about what you're saying there is I actually want to extend the conversation into next week as well, because whilst it's such a vast conversation, we've only just begun to scratch the surface in one area of the topic. I really think that there's a lot to be gained from looking at the approach and best practices relating to the eco and environmental labeling and what the various logos and statements on packaging actually mean for consumers, and a nice carry through of the topic. And I've got some first-hand experience on this particular aspect of the topic, because I'm currently working on a project with a really great client that's launching a new consumer price goods brand. And I have to say I've come to learn a hell of a lot around packaged goods and what these packages require from a labeling point of view and an awareness point of view, whether the fact that the substrates are made from biodegradable or recycled material to what you can and can't do with the product after use. So yeah, I think it'll be a good conversation, because every one of us are handling branded packaging on a daily basis, and we really don't even know what the notifications on these labels represent, Kevin. And actually, even if these products are contributing to the broader green economy at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, thank you. I look forward to that, and I think it's just a beautiful opportunity to learn more about this. Guys, it's our marketing segment that goes out every Thursday at 12 o'clock on eBizRadio.com. Check it out. Craig will be back with us next week again to talk about more about this, the green economy. Craig, thank you for your time, and thanks for chatting.
Yeah, great. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Kevin.
Cheers for now.